we're preparing to live stream this meeting.
Okay. So Liz, was the consensus that I should or should not try to give myself a back massage? Well, not. Oh, not. Okay. Oh, okay. Okay. So I'm going to hang up my Theracane.
Yeah, that'd probably be
I'm
best.
sorry to inconvenience you, Jonathan.
Well, you know what I'll be doing when this is over. This has begun though, right, Liz?
This has begun, yeah.
You should say
everybody.
hello to our 2 viewers, to our 2 confirmed viewers.
Hi, Wasim. Hi, Mrs. Bob. We're glad you're here. Thanks for being our fans. Today, DOOR3 TV open hours. Today we have our usual guests: Jonathan Blessing, CEO of DOOR3, Alex Asianov, founder and president of DOOR3, and I'm Liz Flintz, the director of UX at DOOR3. And we have a special guest, Serena Tan, who's the director of PMO at DOOR3. We're very excited to have her here today because we are going to talk about project management and how project management helps software get made. And I've been promised that there will be disagreements on this topic.
There'll be a healthy debate.
Yeah, we'll deliver on that. Well, welcome, Serena.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And
Hi,
Alex,
everybody.
we do have to, I mean, we just can't let this go unobserved, but you really are kind of sitting in shadow. I worry what this portends.
You know, Jonathan, remember I was CEO of DOOR3 at one point, and now I'm just a shadow cardinal.
No, I think you're the ghost of CEOs past.
This is like the Sith Lord look, Alex's Sith Lord look.
He's in space. I mean, space is
it's kind of dark out there. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Nowhere near
It's
a star.
kind of similar to the server closet. It is dark in space.
Right.
Right. No one can hear you scream, the server closet.
Well, it is loud in there.
Yeah.
The whirling of those fans cooling the hard-working CPUs.
Did you know
project
that,
management.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Liz. Thank you. I don't know. I was waiting for somebody to do it, or otherwise, yeah.
Yeah, project management is it like everything else in the world of technology development. It has moved along and things have changed over time, which is a topic unto itself. And all of these pieces have to come together.
They do. And before we get too deep into the weeds, I want to say what I was saying kind of during our little warm up, because it's something I think about a lot. So I get invited to quite a few calls with our clients and with prospects. And one of the things I'm very proud to say to them, I really enjoy saying to them, because they want to know, why DOOR3, what makes us different. And I really enjoy explaining that the value of an organization like DOOR3, what sets us apart from most of our competitors, especially like the dev shops, is the strength of the kind of consulting wrapper around our services. It's the fact that our projects are managed often, very often, to successful and quick conclusion by our PMs. And I think that this really is something which often isn't said enough and is often overlooked in the value of a company like DOOR3. And here we have Serena, who represents this goodness.
Yeah, and honestly, like if things go well, and no one really complains, and it's like, yep, the project's done. So it's when things don't go well, right? But if things go well, no one really understands what's happening behind the scenes. Yep. And that's what you want, basically, is a smooth going project, but there's so much going behind the scenes.
I mean, do you think a good entry point into this is looking at things from the perspective of like, what happens when things do go wrong, right? I mean, there's because that's illustrative. That really highlights the things that have to go right consistently. It's like, there are so many parts in a working motor that drives you down the road, and if any one part of that doesn't work, well, you're probably on the shoulder with your emergency blinkers on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, obviously our role as PMs is to always be a lot of steps ahead of what's happening at that point of time, right? And if things go wrong, we actually, because we understand all the different parts of the machine that's working, we quickly identify, if things go wrong, potentially which parts aren't working well, right? So I think that's a key thing. It's if things go wrong, it's addressed immediately, like it's addressed as identified immediately and addressed in a fashion where it's, it doesn't bring the whole project to a grinding halt, and that's the goal.
Okay, so you know what? I have an idea. You just said what you said. Let me bring in some counterexamples. So just projects that I've seen go sideways, right? And just general cases that, like the counterexample to what you just said is, a 6-month project is 2 weeks away from delivery. Everyone's getting ready to launch. The users are being trained, the marketing is going on. Everyone's ready to maybe move data over to the new system, whatever the transition and launch plans are. And 2 weeks into the project, with everybody happily anticipating a party, right? The project manager comes in, or the architect, because there is no project manager on this hypothetical project, says, "Oh, I think we're about 5-6 weeks. We need another 5 or 6 weeks. Things just are not like." This is an 11th hour surprise. That should never happen. Like I'm not saying that you're never going to have changes in project trajectory, timing, scope, those kind of things, but you should see them coming a mile away. You shouldn't have 11th hour surprises. And project managers, when they give you regular status, including work done, work left to complete, budget to complete, obstacles, challenges, risks, decisions you need to make as a client, they're giving you the tools to predict what's going to happen way in advance, and sometimes mitigate changes you don't want. And 11th hour surprises, is too late to change anything. You're now committed. You're either going to scrap the project, or you're going to go through with some change you never had a chance to address.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned one thing that maybe was missed was, you said the architect comes to you, or like in some cases where there's no project manager, and in situations where there isn't one. And I think going back to Jonathan about like what is the value of us my team is that the project managers are the ones, right, who pay attention to that, right? The architects, each of us have our own roles that we do well, right? And everyone pays attention to what they need to do, and the PMs are the ones that pay attention to everything, right, that's going on. And that's one of the biggest roles we play, is we not only know what, like the tasks, like it's easy to do a checklist, right? It's easy to do like a kickoff, it's easy to do a checklist, but what's not on the checklist is the ability to foresee things that could happen, and the risks that come at you. And that's one of the strengths of this team is the ability to do that. And that's what good project managers are, is the ability to foresee the different things that can happen and mitigate those.
I think a good analogy for that kind of situational awareness, and maybe it's not a good analogy for some people, but I'm going to use it because I think it works, is a tank commander. Right, a tank commander it has their head out of the turret of a tank, and they're looking around 360. Right, there's no way that your driver, who's looking through the slit and trying to just make their way through the next 50 feet, is going to know what's going on the sides. Certainly, your gun loader, who's sitting in a box, like moving the shells into the gun, they're not going to get you to avoid the obstacles.
I mean, now we know what you've been doing at night. You've been watching Netflix documentaries about tanks.
No, I like military history. It's just sort of like a thing I have in my background. But in all seriousness, like I think a lot of people are really not aware, and it's hard to really empathize with the level of detailed work that, for example, developers have to do, or designers. They're in the weeds, really trying to make things work at a very sophisticated level that requires complete focus. For them to come up a level and look around and be like, hey, so what's the business objective of this thing, and should we really spend another week doing it? It's hard to do, and it's a lot to ask, especially when you have a large team with a lot of moving parts. The project manager is the one with the greatest situational awareness and the greatest ability to communicate.
Yep. I mean, yeah.
I mean, the project manager is the person who ensures that, the electrician doesn't show up on site before the framing is done. Yeah. Or the foundation isn't poured in advance, or rather, the foundation is poured in advance of all the other work aside from the hole being dug.
Right, or be creative enough that if they do it like appear at the same time, is to find workarounds in which they all can work harmoniously, which is in many cases happens, right? Like people turn up when they're not supposed to turn up.
The foundation guys out to get sandwiches while the hole diggers.
Right, do their work. Right, exactly. We're creative.
Yeah, I think from the inside, the role of the PMO from the members of the team perspective, from the designers or the developers perspective, is to make space for them to work. But from the outside, that can often be, from the client perspective, that can be invisible. They may or may not have a lot of contact with the project manager. They just see whether the project is progressing or not.
Well, I like the way you talked about that they kind of make space for the delivery folks to do their work.
Yeah, it's running interference. It's air cover.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed you didn't say "I like your tank" analogy, Alex. So
you gave me another
plane
opportunity.
Analogy.
You gave me another opportunity to kind of poke at your evening activities.
Okay. So what about team management? All right. So there's the management of the project, but we often forget that while the project is going on, the features that are being built, there are like humans.
Oh, software developers are people too?
Yeah. We haven't done a march on Washington yet, but yes, developer lives matter.
So one of the things that Liz mentioned was basically running interference, and it goes back to one of the. Am I allowed to talk about Agile right now? Anyway, but one of the responsibilities.
Oh, you're always allowed to talk about Agile.
One of the responsibilities of the role of Scrum Master is to protect that team, right? Like and I remember being in waterfall projects where we're all sitting in a room and clients are going up to developers and like looking over their shoulders, like, what are you working on right now? And it's distracting, right? So I think part of that role is to protect that team from getting direct instructions from clients, and to make sure that whatever they're doing is in line with what the rest of the team is doing. So that's part of our role too, is to actually make sure that they do focus on what they have to do and not have all this noise take the focus away, because there is a lot of noise on projects, and you just have to like sift through what we have to pay attention to and what can be put aside.
I have a question for you. What are the conditions? And I'm thinking about this from the perspective of the principal consultants, who at DOOR3 operate as kind of account managers. What are the conditions that they can create that make the lives of the PMs easier?
So what I think the biggest thing for PCs when they do sell projects is to actually involve us, and I've talked about this, many times, is to involve us early on, because we come from, what you sell has to be delivered. And this is one thing my philosophy is, the more the PCs collaborate closely with delivery, the more successful these projects are. And I can go back to just examples in the past where there's an absolute close collaboration, we tend to be more successful. So I think that whatever the PCs are working on, like to at a certain point, include us, and we can provide you with our lessons learned from a delivery perspective. So whether resourcing or leaving time for UAT or leaving time for setup or hardening, all of that really comes into what the total effort is, and we tend to miss that in total. And we have that experience, and we can, given the client, given the software that we're building, we can bring in our experiences to help you determine the right amount of effort in those circumstances. So that's what I've been trying to communicate, is that use us as your advocates to make projects successful, even at the very beginning, when at the sales cycle.
So at the moment that we're setting expectations.
Right.
You want to be, yep. Because, often, and it's difficult because as much as we try to formalize the expectations we've set in our SOWs and our proposals and then later in the specifications, there's an understanding, an emergent understanding that exists in the minds of our clients. And yeah, the closer we can get you to that, the better.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So do we want to talk about kind of the sometimes subtle, sometimes not so subtle distinction between program management and project management?
Ooh,
Yeah.
Oh my God, look at the time.
Wow. In summary, in the elevator, the elevator speech of what PMs and project managers versus program managers do. So basically, I think the main distinction between programs and projects is one single stream of work, right? Like, I mean, I think most people would tend to say like you develop an application, that's one stream of work. I think when we anything above that, if it's like running two streams or three, even though it's all connected, like what it becomes more of a program because there's dependencies and there's the same people working on multiple streams, and that's where the coordination will happen, and that's more of a program level. So anything other than one team, one objective becomes more of a program, and that's more I think it increases complexity and risk because a lot of time what I've seen is the same resources are working on multiples, and also there's definitely there's dependencies that happen from one development team versus another, and the business requirements that we gather could affect the other part of the organization. So that's kind of like the high level distinction of what that program versus projects are.
Can you describe an example of this that's concrete? Like, would this be if we had multiple projects for a single client?
Yep. Yeah, that's exactly that. Like anything, if we have different, if we're building an application, we're doing like data, like building dashboards, and this is like multiple projects happening with this one client, that's automatically a program. And like I can think of different examples that we have right now which requires that kind of mindset.
There's
Alex,
there's
do you buy that definition, that distinction?
I buy it, but I buy it as only one dimension of it, right? So one of the things that happens when you have multiple streams of work, and it's not just our streams of work. Like I remember working on a program that had something like 40 different work streams on it, right? So you can have extensive coordination needed to achieve, for example, a digital transformation. Like it shouldn't be about building one piece of software, right? So when you're dealing with multiple work streams, you're also typically dealing with something that is a lot of money, has a lot of visibility at the C-level, often at the board level of an organization. And so the ability to manage those streams and obstacle clear and optimize, that's one dimension of that. That's kind of the project management dimension of program management. And then there's the communication and the executive sponsorship management, board conversations, all of the things that are needed, because you can't walk into a board meeting and say, let me tell you about 40 things, right? Like, because they've got about 3 minutes for you to tell you why that $25 million initiative over 3 years is still going okay, and then you need to get out of Dodge and let the CEO talk about other things, right? So how to boil up all of that information into executive communication at several different levels, the board being the highest, and then the C-level, potentially an executive sponsor below that, and make everyone feel aligned with the project. So if things are going well, you want them to feel well for a reason. If you want them to be worried, you want them to be worried for valid reasons and in reasonable ways that are actionable, right? So it's very there's this level of communication data visualization, and executive management, upward management, that distinguishes, I think, program management from project management in certain ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that, again, going back to Agile, it's like, managing multiple teams, multiple Scrum teams, right? And then there's the roll up of what we call Scrum of Scrums, right? Because then it rolls up to, well, there's all these interdependencies, and how do we, like, if there's 40 projects, what are how do we roll that up, and then highlight or identify the project or projects that are in the critical path at that point of time, right? Because those are the things that you want to pay attention to. Because as a program manager, if I have 40 projects, I'm not going to be able to manage that. I'm not going to be able to pay attention to all 40. I'm going to only pay attention to what the critical paths are and what's going to prevent this entire program from, or is going to keep this entire program from moving forward.
It's a good point. Critical path analysis is really, really key as an ongoing concern on the program. At a micro level, that happens on the project level as well, but at a top level, you have to be able to rely on project managers on other projects. You have to have a certain kind of team building and team management at the PM to PM level, sort of top or program manager to PM level. You also, I would argue also that in addition to communication, which I mentioned, there's also a stronger focus on top level business objectives, right? And it necessarily so, because that's what the top level recipients of the communication actually care about. So so translating hey, the development of these features is going well, and the design artifacts are coming in on time, into yes, we're going to be able to open up this new revenue stream in 6 months, right? That kind of a strategist view of the work streams, right? I think is a really important, and that helps you narrow down your communications, zero in on what people care about, and enables that compactness and value delivery.
Yeah, and this is probably another topic, but in my, in the PMO, there's not just project managers, but then there's the business analysts, which we can probably pull, have a different conversation about. But that's where I think the key part of what a BA does is understanding high level requirements and what KPIs are, and actually just keeping their eye on that. And in the PMO, the PMs and BAs actually work really closely together to really focus on that goal, right? So where traditionally in PMOs it's just PMs and program managers, but in this team it's PMs and BAs, which actually is a big advantage for really kind of keeping everyone in line to why we're building this and what the KPIs are, and just keeping an eye on that, because you don't want to spend effort on building something that really doesn't align to your business objectives. So that's, I think, what makes us different is that the two roles are working so closely together.
I think, maybe we could talk a little bit about how the PC role, the principal consultant role, intersects with the PMO at DOOR3, because in some other organizations, the PM is the primary client liaison, and that's not the case at DOOR3. The PM is a client liaison, but there's also this principal consultant role. So maybe that's a distinction that I think we could make between us and others, maybe.
So Alex, what's your role? What do you think is how do you see your role as a PC in projects? And I can kind of add to that, and how I see PM's role.
Sure. So as a principal consultant, my role is to, from the moment I meet a new client, to develop a relationship, an objectives-driven relationship. Obviously, we want to have a good human relationship too, because projects are roller coasters, and when you're on roller coasters, you really want to have allies and friends, right? As opposed to simply people who do things over on the side there. So developing a human relationship and a collegial working relationship is really key, but it has to be objectives-driven. So alignment of the work that DOOR3 will do for a client to the business objectives, and making sure that the project is structured in a way that is going to deliver on those business objectives in the best way possible. and then making sure that we continue to look at that. So we want to periodically review the objectives of the organization, the projects in flight, in not just ours, right, but whatever is going on in the organization. Executive, take the temperature of executive sponsorship and understand what their wishes and needs are. Putting all of that together and maintaining that alignment with the team that's delivering is really key.
I have a thought on this, because I have a thought on this, and that I really see, so Serena, in a nutshell, I like to say that the PCs, that their primary role is to help develop and share the project vision with the clients.
Yeah.
Okay.
They are basically the surrogates for the clients here at DOOR3. They're the visionary.
They're the day-to-day advocate and visionary. Yeah. I would agree that that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, and I see the PM's role, obviously, at its very core is delivering, right? Like whatever vision that, the PCs have established with the client expectations, that's what we deliver. But I also see as trying to build, we talk a lot about like what other things are happening in organization, which the PCs, right? You mentioned like what, not just our project, what else is going on. And I think the PMs being on the ground and talking to the people, working with the teams currently on the project will also be able to potentially identify that, right? Because there's conversations that happen in the project, and then, at times they'll say, oh, but there's this other team, that's doing this, and that's potentially an opportunity. And that's where I think the PCs and PMs can work closer together, is while the PCs are, looking at overall client objectives, we can potentially, being on the ground, identify concrete things and concrete potential opportunities that we may be able to build upon, right? Because
Yep.
we're on the ground.
But so there's a balance, right? Like I distinctly remember having a conversation, and I usually ask, hey, what were your past experiences? Who did you work with? How did that go? And I remember him saying, I was working with a pretty good dev shop. They delivered on time, more or less. They were good folks, but like, having worked with you now for a little while, I see that like I was missing a dimension, because the project manager on that project with the old agency was really good, right? Did good work, but they were focused on getting things done. I need someone to look out into the future with me sometimes. Like you separate the current events from aspirations, and bring some market intelligence to the table. Bring some emerging technology wisdom to the table, and let's imagine things together, right? And it's on the ground. The business analysts, the architects do that, but they're doing that closer to the moment, right? There are things that clients need in terms of intellectual drive and future visioning that are not in this moment. They're in some future moment, but that needs to be envisioned today. And I think that the PCs are there to be the client's partner in that.
Yep.
I like it.
Yep.
We're almost at time. This is amazing, but I don't know. Any final words about I mean, not final, but final for this episode of DOOR3 about project management? There'll be other opportunities to speak on this, I'm sure.
It's important.
Yeah, it's important. Yeah, that's an understatement. Yeah, I know. You both have me thinking about the shared responsibilities of the PCs and the PMs, and then I guess the areas where they don't overlap. So yeah, no, this is, you know what, I think we should do this again. But maybe what we do is we have 2 PCs and 2 PMs, and it's like an arm wrestling match.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you
What do you
going to
think,
be the
Liz?
referee with a bell?
No, Liz is the referee.
Yeah, I think we could have one.
I'm
of
the
each.
chorus.
We might get that might be a little 2 of each might.
Well, like we can do like what they do in World Wrestling, which by the way is a client of ours. We can do tag in, tag out. Like it's always one-on-one, but like there's one PC, one PM, and then
But
it has to be a cage.
Specifically
there has to be
though,
a cage match.
we should be trying to examine the territory where the line is and where each of you respectfully believes it should be drawn.
I think that'll be an interesting conversation.
That could make
but if it's done respectfully, would it be
TV.
fun for our viewers?
We'll have to ask Bob's wife.
Okay, all right. Let's find out.
And Wasim, our 2 viewers.
Bye, Wasim. It's
Yeah,
been another
Bye, guys.
great
Bye.
episode of Door3 TV. If anybody
great
wants
with
to get a
popcorn.
hold of us, find out more about our PMO, you can email us at projects@door3.com.
And don't forget to smash that like button and hit the subscribe.
Crush that subscribe button. Okay.